This is a quick and dirty video that's going to show how to get up and running with Qt Creator and Qt Designer, and also show you how to connect simple programs to the user interface, graphical user interface that you design, and how to test it. There is no knowledge of Qt assumed. We're just going to go through the motions though, and you can go ahead and research the theory later by looking it up on the documentation. So I've loaded up Qt Creator, the Qt IDE already, and I'm going to click New Project. And I'm going to create a new application. I'm not going to do a complicated application. It's going to be very minimal. It's going to be a very minimal graphical user interface. So we'll do a widgets application and click Choose. Now here we need to change our directory. So I'm going to create a new folder for first program and select the folder, and you need to set the name manually. It's not going to be set for you. Otherwise you're going to have the project name untitled, so I'm going to call this first as well. Click Next. Here we are to kit selection. I only have Qt MinGW 32-bit installed. You may have Visual Studio installed, or if you have another installation, you can choose the kit of your choice. We're going to run with MinGW. Here we have a choice of different base classes to extend from. QMain window is selected here. I'm going to change it to QDialog because I don't want to work with pull-down menus and all the motherhood that comes with a QMain window. So QDialog. This will create an extended class called dialog with a capital D, and that extended class will have a .h file and .cpp file generated. In addition, we'll have a .ui file generated. Click Next. And here, this is for version control, project management. There are various version control managers. If you're interested in Git, Mercurial, CVS, or others, then these are available to you. Please feel free to research it on your own. Clicking Finished. After let's look here first, generating in this directory, and we have this set of files that's going to be generated. Dialog.cpp, dialog.h are the extended are the class files of the extended class that we're making, which is going to be off the QDialog class. Dialog.ui is the user interface file that's going to be edited in the Rad Tool Developer, which is a Qt Designer. The project file, which is a .pro file, first.pro, and a main.cpp file, which instantiates and calls our new main program class. Let's finish. And now we are generating our files here. So we can take a little tour. The first project, which is here, the project file. We double click on this and we see some information which is in a makefile format or very similar. I believe this is called by QMake here to develop a final version of the makefiles. Here you have a list of headers. Right here, dialog.h is the only header file that's in our project right now. So we can open that, and you can see that it's developed the namespace, and it extends the class QDialog to make the final class. We need to have QObject here as a keyword, which is used by the Q compiler. The Qt compiler, which goes through and substitutes some extra source code. Okay, and some other motherhood. There's dialog.cpp, which includes the header file. It includes the header file, yes, and it creates the constructor here and the destructor. All this is doing with the constructor and destructor is first instantiating the user interface as UI, and then calling setup UI to make it run. At the end, with the destructor, it deletes it so that all the components are properly destroyed. Main.cpp, excuse me, mains.cpp, we instantiate a Q application which processes the command line arguments, and then creates our dialog window, which is extended from QDialog. We show the dialog window here, and then we execute our program after it's shown. Dialog.ui is the final file, and if we double click on it, we come to Qt Designer here, and we can now modify our layout and develop it. Let's create a layout here. So vertical layout. I'm going to place a vertical layout here, and because we have a circle with a cross on it or a slash on it, we see that the layout is not properly set. Let's do a right click, and we're going to go to layout and layout vertically. And now we note that the circle with the slash is fixed. So we have our widget palette, we have our window for modifying the layout, we have our object hierarchy, and we have the properties over here associated with the current class. We have a set of signals and slots and an action editor, which is available here. So let's modify our layout. Just having a blank VBox layout is not particularly interesting. Let's go down, scroll down here to display widgets towards the bottom, and we've got a label. Let's bring it in. And we've got text label. Now I'm going to bring in another text label. Look here, there's a blue line at the top, and then now there's a blue line at the bottom, blue line at the top, at the bottom. It's moving with my mouse. This tells us where the text labels are going to be placed, or the other widget, if you will, if you choose another one. So I'm going to place 3 text labels in order, and I'm going to just label them. I'm going to change the text. Hi, my name is Werner Brandis. If you ever saw the movie Sneakers, maybe this would ring a bell. So I'm going to come here to the second label. And I'm going to look here at the properties. The object names I'm not going to bother to change because these are label, label 2, and label 3. These can be changed if you prefer to make them more meaningful when you wish to access them in your program. However, I won't be accessing them directly. I'll just be leaving them as is. Here, I'm going to change the properties, however, of this middle label. I'm going to scroll down to the Q label, and I see an alignment tab. I'm going to open that, and I see alignment for horizontal and vertical. Let's change the horizontal alignment to align H center, and notice that the text shifts from the left side to the center. Now we'll come to the third label. This is aligned left as well. I want to right align this, and we see it's moved to the right. So you can move these around as you like. Now once we finish this labeling, we can say File, Save All. We can click on the Edit window, and when we click on the Edit window from the UI, we see here an XML file. The dialog.ui file is really an XML file which is modified and edited here in Qt Designer. But if you wish to manually edit that XML file, you can edit it here. Okay, this is compiled by UIC. Now that we are at this point, we can now, we've placed some labels, we've modified them. Let's run it and see how it looks. We can come down here to the Run button and click Run. We are here looking at the application output, and we see a dialog now. Hi, my name is Werner Brandis. And our window which we defined in Qt Designer, is coming up just as we expected in the dialog. This application output window here, look over here. Well, before that, let me just close this window, and then we'll come back here to Qt Creator, the IDE. We have several tabs here along the bottom. Application output. This is useful for viewing any printouts of cout. So if you need to use debugging flags, and you're not used to doing GUI design, but you wish to use cout or printf, for instance, you can do that here. You can view the output here in this window. So let's look at the dialog UI, and let's modify this program a bit. Viewing text in a window is a really good first step, but it's very uninteresting because it's just something to look at. We wish to interact with it. Let's scroll up here, and we have several buttons here. Let's pull out a push button, and let's place it at the bottom. And I'm going to change the text to be something more informative to the user, more instructive, if you will. I'm going to say, "Click me," and exclamation point. And now we wish to connect this to a slot. I'm going to right-click the button, and I'm going to go to slot here. And now I'm going to select clicked. It's already selected at the top since it's the first. You can go ahead and click OK. And then it will generate the code in dialog.cpp and dialog.h. On push button clicked, and if you look at dialog.h, you'll see private slots on push button clicked. This was generated by Qt Designer. Let's come back to dialog.cpp, and because it's something we wish to see very quickly, we wish to see feedback very quickly, let's do that. std : cout, quote, clicked me, end quote, std : and L. There is no member named cout in namespace std. Why is this? Well, we need to include IOStream first of all. So now that we've included that, you can save the file, CPP. You can save the file here, and then come here, save this file, dialog.ui, come back and edit, and now we can try running. We've created a button that will respond to a user click, and it will print out text in response. Let's try running. And so we have already the application output window, which is open in Qt Creator here. So I'm going to click this button that says click me. Watch this window here on application output. We see click me, click me, click me, click me. Every time I click the button, it prints it. So we have successfully connected the button to a slot, and we can respond to it now. Let's make this a little more interesting here. We can come over to dialog.cpp, and let's say we wish to do something a little bit more interesting now. We can go UI, dereference, and let's pick the first label, and then let's dereference, and we will say set text, and now we can give it a string, and we can say the rain in Spain stays mainly in Philadelphia, and save that. Now this is a little bit more interesting. What are we doing here? UI. This is an instance of a class that we will use to display our user interface, which we developed in Qt Designer. We don't have any source code files, nor do we have any header files or CPP files that are associated with this UI. We include it here with QObject, and we declare it UI : dialog star UI here. What is happening is the Qt compiler is generating source code for the user interface based on this UI file here, this XML UI file here. So when we come back to our dialog CPP file, even though we don't see the actual source code within the window immediately, it's actually being generated. If you try to compile and run the code and there's an error, it's going to come up, it's going to open the file that was generated and show you where the error appeared. So let's save this and let's try running it to see if this works as expected. Click me. This should change hi, and it should print click me. Let's try it. And look, the rain in Spain stays mainly in Philadelphia. So we have feedback when we click this button here, and we see a printout of a message to the application output window. So if you need, you can view debugging information here, and you can send feedback to the user interface which you are developing. So I'm going to close this window. How did I know to look at this label? How did I know that this was the name for that first label? Well, if we look at dialog.ui and click on this first Q label, notice that the object name field here is label. If I wanted to change the second one, I would use label 2, and if I wanted to use this third one, I would use label 3. Feel free to experiment. Now, there is one other detail where we might wish to do something more specific, which is with mouse location. So say we wish to get the mouse location within a Qt widget, so the X and Y location. We would not be able to use a slot, or if we are, I haven't been able to figure out how to use it. But one way to do that is by taking the object that you are instantiating and promoting it, or extending it with a subclass, and then instantiating the virtual methods for mousePressEvent and mouseReleaseEvent. So for this label 3 label, I'm going to right click, and what I am going to do is say I'm going to promote to. I am basically saying that I am going to extend the class. Instead of a Q label, I'm going to call it myLabel. M-Y, capital M-Y, capital L-A-B-E-L. I am going to add it to the list. It's going to be a global include. And then I am going to promote. So now this is promoted to a class of type myLabel. If we try, well, let's first save all. If we try running as is now, we're going to get an error message saying mylabel.h, no such file or directory. We need to create the label source code files, the header file and the .cpp file. Let us do this. File, new file or project, and we're going to come down to files and classes. We'll click on C++. We want both H and CPP. So we will leave it as an H and CPP pair, so the C++ class creates both files. Let's choose this. The class name. This must match exactly the class that you promoted. Capital M, Y, capital L, A, B, E, L. Oh, I am sorry. This isn't the class name. This is the base class. This is the base class. Your class name can be anything you choose. We will call this lowercase my. Oh, I am sorry again. This should be class name MyLabel. The base class should be QLABEL. So capital Q, capital L, A, B, E, L, and then class name capital M, Y, capital L, A, B, E, L. Just like so. This will create the .h and the .cpp file, and in the proper directory, click Next. This will be added to the project. Version control, if you desire, not going to be included here. We will click Finish. And now we have here a .cpp file which runs the has the constructor for MyLabel, and we have a .h file. So for QLabel, we should do an include of Q capital LABEL, and then this removes the error here. Also, let's include the keyword Q object so that it will interact with it appropriately. Let's create a private slots, and we will say void mouse event, mouse press event, Q mouse event star EV, like so. And here we will need to add one more bit here to MyLabel, the MyLabel constructor. We need to have a constructor which handles parenting. So we will say Q widget pointer parent equals null PTR. And let's see. All right. So we are in agreement here. And then we come to mylabel.cpp. Let's copy this. Oh, we can just type it. That's fine too. Q widget pointer parent, like so, and then colon, and then we will call the superclass constructor QLabel parent, like this. And now we have finished preparation of our class for the label. Let us now create the mousePressEvent. Void MyLabel mousePressEvent QMouseEvent pointer EV. Right? And now I can say std : cout x equals ev dot, or dereference x. And then I can say space y equals ev dereference y. Std and L. We can include IO stream, like so, and this should give us access to everything we need. So what is our error here? Incomplete type Q mouse event. Pound include QMouseEvent. And then this should give us what we need. Let's check dialog or mylabel.h. And we should include, it looks like we are including everything we need here. Let's go ahead and save. Control S. And now we can go ahead and run it. Save all. We are interested in looking at the application output now. Very, very important, because we wish to see if we get the X and Y locations. So this is a extended class that we're using for this bottom label, and these top two labels we're using the standard QLabel class. So let's first try ClickMe to make sure we haven't modified our original intent with this label here and with the debug message. So if I click me, we should see that the rain in Spain falls mainly in Philadelphia. And we are still working correctly, and we get the debug message, clicked me. Now let's look at this label, Werner Brandes. This is our extended class, and it includes our mousePressEvent. If I click here, notice that we have a message saying that I press the mouse at x equals 53, y equals 40. Watch this message, watch the messages appear here. As I move the mouse, I can get different mouse press locations. So this is how you can extend a widget class that is available in Qt Designer and implement virtual functions. Hopefully this tutorial was helpful to you.